Welcome, everybody, to the Workplace Wanderer. Lessons from the experts. I am Blake Cohen, here
Hi,
with...
I'm Kara Kirby.
Hi, Kara.
Hello.
Another week. And we have a special guest today that I'm very excited to talk to. Kara warned me that this is going to be an emotional conversation, so I'll have to try to access some of those feelings in my deep, frozen heart. And I'm looking forward to talking about this topic. So, Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So, Jason, if you don't mind, could you introduce yourself and then also introduce the topic of what we'll be discussing today?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Jason Seiden, by day, I'm the VP of Marketing at truckstock.com. So, I've got this personal mission to make the world more connected and productive and joyful. And I literally do that by connecting people and shippers who need to bring the, I mean, it's really kind of crazy how on the nose it is. And then I've got a passion project that I've been working on for the last few years called Comfort Communications. And Comfort is another way in which I make the world more connected and productive and joyful. And this one's a little bit more emotional because it's all about helping people at work support grieving colleagues.
Mm.
And that is the topic for today.
Okay. It's not a topic you hear about very often. And somebody who's a student of organizational dynamics, we talk about organizational trauma and you talk about how to deal with it at a very surface level, but going deeply into the grief aspect is not something that's brought up. And I imagine it can be quite uncomfortable for organizations or HR managers or just managers, leadership in general to know how to deal with, right?
Yeah, uncomfortable is like the tip of the iceberg. So the whole idea of comfort is to actually normalize the conversation around grief and make it more accessible. Because Blake, you're right on the nose. It's one of those topics no one wants to touch. It's a third rail. And frankly, there's all kinds of challenges with the way companies approach it. And the biggest challenge is it's a gap. Even for the best companies out there, it's a gap. I will say, so I do this with my wife, and we're both marketing people. She is the one who actually kind of had the aha moment that this really can't be around grief. It's got to be around comfort. That one of the challenges, this is like a language creating your reality kind of thing. One of the challenges that organizations have is as soon as you talk about grief support, most people are going to want to turn on their heel and run. No one wants to touch that. So many people watching this have been through trauma. And if you ask them, like, would you want to relive your grief? No. Right. I don't want to be here. Like, I certainly don't want to take any of my time, to go through somebody else's if I don't have to.
Right.
And really, what's required isn't living somebody else's grief, right? It's like, I'm sitting in this hole. It's like, I don't want you in the hole with me. This is a bad place. Like, I want you to throw me a rope and help me get out. I want you to give me comfort. I want you to renormalize my life and make me feel a part of things. So when Lise was the one when she was like, this is about comfort. That sort of opened up this whole notion of like, we could suddenly see where the gaps were, why the gaps existed, and what was required to really help start close them so that organizations could be better at addressing grief in the workplace.
Yeah. In a sense, it's almost like the palliative care post passing for organizations. Like you're taking this in a comfortable way, and you're guiding people through the process in a very comfortable way.
Yeah, well, so if we rewind the clock, and I'll share how this got started in a minute. We'll work up to that, right? Because that I think is the emotion that Carol is alluding to.
Okay.
What I'll say is most of the resources that organizations have that address grief are for the individual who's going through it. And there's a couple of problems with them. Number one, the biggest problem is these resources, when they exist, tend to sit on a shelf part of the EAP maybe. Uh, but when you're a puddle on the floor, you can't reach this stuff on the shelf.
Mm.
So when those resources exist, uh, I have access to a therapist. Well, that's great. But there's probably like 2 or 3 different options in that EAP to get me therapy, which means I need the executive function to log into a system, evaluate different options, pick one, and then make the evaluation of how I want to engage with it. I don't have any of this executive
Yeah.
function available to me when I'm going through grief. So they may as well not exist. Um, and the other challenge that you have is kind of related to that because there's nothing for the organization around the individual. That person also ends up managing their own care. Like it's not just the care itself, but it's also like the management of that care. When I went through my thing, I was actively working with 126 people. I was consulting and I was moving into full time at an organization uh, with Kara. And my cross functional work, I was in touch with 126 people. I heard from 60 people the week that I went through grief, which sounds like that's amazing. You heard from 60 people. People showed up. Those are 60 people with expectations of hearing back from me while I'm a mess. And I'm like, I don't know the protocol. Who do I get back to first? And what do I do when I hear from a C-level person versus, a direct manager versus a peer? Like, how do I prioritize? Again, there's like an executive function that's required that I don't have it, right? Like, and I'm good at this stuff, and I'm like, I give up, right? Like, I hope people are okay with the fact that I'm not getting back to them this week. So those are 2 huge problems, right? The fact that the resources often don't exist, and when they do, they're inaccessible. And number 2, there's no way to kind of manage the broader process. So the individual going through it's just inundated with everybody, good intentions, bad intentions, mistakes, like it's all coming at you. So you get overwhelmed with the wrong thing, and the stuff you need you can't reach.
It makes me think of I think of this as such a new concept for organizations, right? And I can only imagine the strange conversations that you have when you're going out and you're talking about this. But it reminds me of whenever organizations started to pay attention to mothers going out on leave.
Yeah,
And I
right.
mean, there's still so many gaps in that space, but now people are thinking about it, and I love that idea that you have to pay attention to supporting the people around the person, because not talking about the grief, just talking about going off on maternity leave and like having your first child. I mean, dads, moms, like everybody, it's such just an all-encompassing period of life. And I mean, I was so grateful that I had people around me that knew how to handle it and help me, because I was so like, well, I could do anything, right? I've been working since I was 13 years old. Like, this is a baby, no problem. I'm gonna have 3 months off of work. And then I just got hit with so much different things.
Yeah.
And and if it wasn't that the people around me that were skilled, I would have, I don't know how women manage that situation if they don't have capable people around them. And I know so many of them don't.
You know
I
what?
think there's
I think that analogy is spot on because it's
Yeah.
motherhood's not a feeling, right? So you go into these things, right? Whether it's and by the way, I'm not. This is not about mansplaining anything.
No.
Like,
Tell me
in my
about
house. I do recognize the
let me
difference
explain
between
the
mother and
birth
father.
process to
tell me
you.
about what it means to
Yeah.
have a child. How was it for you?
Well, Karen, let me tell you how it starts. So typically a male and female.
the but
Easy, guys.
the idea of grief and joy and parenthood, when you're looking at these things before you've experienced them, right? And I'll speak from grief and I'll let you handle the
Yeah.
analogy. When I'm looking at grief, I'm like, oh, traumatic grief. You know what? I know what sadness is. I know what melancholy is. I know what depression is. So I can sort of imagine a more extreme version of this, and I can just sort of like imagine my coping mechanisms just working harder, taking longer, right? And that's kind of how you think about it. And then you get there, and you're like,
Ugh.
grief is a state of being. It is not an emotion. It is a totally different beast. It is a void. It is just a blackness. It's a void. You feel you're like beyond feeling.
Yeah.
And so you get there and you're like, oh, I totally uh, I underestimated this. I made a
Hmm.
mistake. I have no tools for this.
Yeah.
And now what? And the the idea of helping the people around you help you is powerful because the people around you are in one of two camps. Either they've been through it and they know what you're going through,
Hmm.
and then it splits, right? Some of those people can't deal with it. They have their own unresolved stuff. They're not touching this. Others actually may have the tools, but they don't know if it's appropriate to help you. They're not the team leader, or maybe they're not close to you. So how do they engage? And how do they coordinate with everybody else so that people know, like in this circumstance, like they've got a skill to use. Right. So that's kind of one bucket. The people who have been through it and know exactly what role they want to play. Then you have the other bucket of all the people who haven't been through it, who think it's just a deeper form of depression. And
Mhm.
so they're like, oh, I think I got this. Right. And then they come at you with all the wrong stuff because it's just the frame of reference is off. And
Yeah.
so the idea behind comfort really came about when I went through this. And I was, and then I'll tell the story because Kara's here. So I was consulting with Ultimate Software, and I was literally in the process of uh, coming on full time. And we're working to it, so I'll tell the literal story here in a second. But in terms of work, I mean, you want to talk about the hiring experience from hell. I mean, I had to send a note to the C-suite. I'm like, so this just happened. Are we still talking? Right? And they were great. They're like, yes, and the company was truly a great place to work. Had all the resources, but grief was a gap. And so uh, the support I got with grief, it's like everybody, the intentions were really good. I heard from 60 people that first week, like people really showed up, but they didn't necessarily know how to show up. And I don't think they knew how alone I felt. And my manager was also really trying, didn't quite have the tools to do it, didn't have the support. And what was kind of wild is working at a great place to work, the gap was highlighted because the support for other types of issues was so solid.
Wow.
It was unintentional, but like I was aware of how unsupported I was,
Yeah.
right? And so, here was this organization doing its best, getting everything right, and it was a mess. So, I ended up exiting the company maybe a year and a half after that, right? And that's a huge investment, walking out the door. I was never able to get it to click with the team, and so took some time, um, and then really thought about, okay, how could I have supported? What could I have done differently? What could the company have done differently for me? And right, and I started looking at the world, and it's like there's all kinds of resources for the individual if the company buys them, and then they go on the shelf in the AP. I'm like, I wasn't thinking it. Like I was going through orientation, and there's no way I would have been able to access an EAP. Like it was being handed to me, and I
Yeah.
couldn't. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I saw it. Um, right, and that was the conversation I was having with my wife, where she's like, it's really about providing comfort, and it's like the light bulb went off. It's like that's it. It's about making sure that the team around has the tools, they know what to say, and they can actually coordinate so that they know what to say as a team. And so that was kind of the dawn of comfort. And I think probably like everyone's probably curious. You guys probably want to know what the story was. Uh,
If you're
so
comfortable.
yeah, absolutely. I've been very open about this over the last couple of years. Um, so my older daughter Elle had a condition called complex regional pain syndrome (CRPS), which was it's nerve pain. So again, on a 50-point pain scale, childbirth is registered at about a 35, and CRPS is a 48. It's just nuts.
Wow.
Um, and Elle had missed, she was 15. She had missed all of the kind of the markers for a full recovery. And her body, you spend years in acute pain, right? So it's both chronic and acute. Like she was in bad shape. And so she decided, not doing this anymore. So ultimately she died of suicide. But as a result of just being in this incredible pain for so long. Um,
How old was she?
she was 15.
15. Wow.
And I think, what what complicates things, what made it really hard, and I think the reason why something like comfort is necessary is, first of all, I know what a lot of people are thinking. Like, I can't imagine, which, please don't, right? Like it's this isn't like, oh, this food tastes weird, tastes like this is bad. Like, do not spend a moment imagining this, right?
Yeah.
Like, hug your kids, hug your pets, hug your parents, like find someone you love and spend time with them, put love into the world. That is the appropriate reaction to, hearing this news. Um, but in addition to not being unique in going through something like this, I think the other thing that made me not unique is not a lot of people knew what I was dealing with.
Mm.
As a consultant, you're not putting something that personally distracting on the table with your clients because you're
Of
just not.
course.
So, how do you go from 0 to 100? How do you fill in the world and tell them, yeah, I lost my kid. And by the way, I'm not surprised. We've been doing this for years. It's been going the wrong way. It's been really like you can't. And I know a lot of folks, whether it's siblings who maybe are dealing with addictions, or parents who are who have long-term illness. Like, people carry around this chronic long-term stuff that they really don't feel like sharing with people, and then a little thing goes sideways, and all of a sudden it comes crashing down on them, and it's very, very lonely. And so that's what I was going through. And I joined Ultimate, which was amazing. And here's an example of good intentions with unintended consequences. Friends of mine put together a fundraiser for Al, and people at Ultimate and as well as elsewhere, they showed up when the money came in. I have flag from the Human Rights Campaign, which was one of my daughter's causes. Uh, they called and they're like, donations of this size, we fly a flag in honor of the person, and we'll give that to you. So
Right.
this is huge. The next person on my team got a meal train, and this might sound nuts, but I wish I would have had the meal train. I was new to the
Mm.
team. I didn't really know these people that well. I'm looking for that sense of camaraderie. I was very appreciative, and I am very appreciative. That flag is my most prized possession. But it was also like I felt the disconnect, and they may have too. They might have really appreciated the meal train, but they might have said, "Wait a second, my parent who just passed, like they had a pet cause. Like I kind of like all this, right? Like this money to show up in it." And so helping organizations even anticipate things like that and have a standard operating procedure so that the extremes are pulled in, that's a part of what comfort focuses on. And I think, again, it's important for ways that are hard to anticipate if you haven't been through it.
Just for clarity's purposes, and thank you for sharing that, for all of that. And I'm glad you're open about that because I'm sure it does help other people who may be going through it and offers some insight. Just in your story helps us understand a little bit better of how we should respond to these types of moments in people's lives. A meal train is when, because I think I've been a part of this before, it's when people, you sign up and right, and everybody kind of takes a day and they send food over to the house.
Yep, you got it.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify because that is a great way to comfort. I mean, I'm sure you're sitting at home going, I don't want to cook. I don't want to go get food. Like the most menial tasks feel like you're going to go deadlift 500 pounds.
Yeah, we're getting out of bed. Like the comforter has never been heavier, right? And it's just
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, but in those moments, is it appropriate for people to ask, what would you prefer? How would you like, what would be the most comforting for you? Do you in that moment even have an answer to a question like that?
I think that's one of the money questions with all this. Is it appropriate? First of all, yes. Right now we'll get into this in just a second, but showing up is the most appropriate thing. Put your foot in your mouth, say the wrong thing. It does not matter. You show up, that's number one. I don't
Okay.
know what to say. Fine. Um, what you don't want to say is something offensive. Like if you're a manager, like don't ask me when I'm coming back to work is the first things out of your mouth, right? But uh, if you're trying, like it's kind of wild. My memories from those days, as you can imagine, are spotty. But grief opens you up in a way that's hard to describe, right? Like nothing opens a heart like just breaking it.
Yeah.
And well, this might not be true for everybody, but what was true for me was I could almost see people's intentions. I could almost see their heart. I could feel what was behind what they were saying, which made it much easier for me to not care if the words coming at me were perfect. And there were some misses. I mean, and I'm like, okay, I can see like this person's missing. Like it's good. I had a good friend who showed up at the memorial and then went AWOL, and I could feel it. I'm like, no, he hasn't gotten over his mother dying. Like he's not coming back for a few months. And I had another friend in the group was like, I can't believe he's not here for you. I'm like, he is. He like it was
Oh,
Herculean for him showing up the first day, and he'll be back.
Right.
I could see it. So show up. Is it appropriate to ask that question? Of course. A better question, a better thing to do is just do it, because like your question actually was also the answer. No, the individual is not in a state of mind to know what they need. And in fact, even if they think they know, they don't. The desire to run out, and either crawl up, into a ball or jump into the world and set up a foundation. And people react in very extreme ways, and none of them are right.
Right.
So, helping, just doing something. Hey, I made you this. Hey, I had a tree planted in the person's name. Hey, we had something similar in my family. I made a donation to this cause I care about in honor of them. Hey, you know what? I had my family put their phones away during dinner last night, and we paid attention to each other. And we talked about how important family is. Great. Just do something, share that. Like do something and honor the person and just share with the individual who's grieving, this is what I just did for you.
Yeah.
This is what I did in honor of you. And if there's more, let me know. That's even better than asking somebody what they need.
Yeah.
it's almost like the concept of, the little moments are the ones that like add up and are the things that support the person. I mean, I don't know if there's a perfect answer.
So the perfect answer is imperfect. So
Yeah.
the thing that always comes to mind when I think about this, organizations don't have any rituals around this, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Religion does.
Mm.
One of the most beautiful religions around grief comes from Judaism, and it's the idea of Shiva. And in Shiva, the community comes together, right? So you lose somebody, uh, they're you're supposed to cover all your mirrors and do all this stuff. Like you don't look at yourself. Like you just get out of your own head. But then you open your door, you unlock your door, and for 7 days, your family and your neighbors come over, and they're making
Mm.
dinner, and they're cleaning your house, and they're entertaining for you in your house. And it's annoying. I can swear, right? It is
Yeah.
annoying as fuck because it's like, if you've ever been in the hospital, like you're groggy after surgery and the nurses keep coming in like every 20 minutes doing but it anchors you. So you got these people who are pulling you out of yourself and you're in
It's like
shock,
the last thing you want to be doing, I can imagine.
but you know what? But you're not alone.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're keeping you there and they're taking care of you. And whether it's perfect or not, doesn't matter. You're being taken care of. And after a week, by the time you're alone, the worst of it's past. And you also have this memory of the community showing up for you. And you have that as well as the grief. And it sort of acts as kind of like an emotional balm. And so part of the idea of comfort is the same thing. Somebody's going through it. Show up, take the initiative. Here's what to say. Here's how to organize so that somebody's constantly checking in and putting some kind
Mm.
of positivity in this person's path. And somebody's paying attention to what the team leads are doing so that this person doesn't get onto a Zoom call where the first 10 minutes are like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, my family and I did this. My family and I did this. Hey, Jace, what'd you guys do? Have a funeral, So, it's little things like that to put some positivity in there so that by the time that individual's at a place where they can start bringing people into the fold, start sharing the full story, unburden themselves. They have like this memory of like how the team showed up for them baked into the rest of the story as well.
I'm sure you have just an enormous list, not from your own experience but through research of all of the ways that organizations get it so wrong.
Oh, it's comical.
Yeah, like I even think about instances from people saying that someone passed away in their organization, and the organization like put out a job description the next day.
Oh, God.
I mean,
That's extreme. That is,
yeah, but no, that's not the first. I mean, I've heard that in like multiple situations, but I just think about I don't know, good or bad, my mind is just going of like to like how do you wake people up to the need around this, right? And I will say that in those situations, it's almost like an immediate disengagement factor, because what it
Yeah.
communicates to the rest of the employees is that you're just a cog in the wheel. If you pass away, or if something else dire happens to someone in this organization, you're just a piece of the machine. You don't matter. Right. Like it's like the
Yeah.
quickest way to communicate that really, really awful message unintentionally.
I think you nailed it. Um, so my, I went through this, right? So the journey of
Yeah.
comfort was long, right? And there was a lot of research, and there were hundreds of conversations with people who have dealt with this.
Oh
And
my gosh, I can't imagine anyways, that's probably a conversation for another day, but that collection of those conversations and that experience, I bet was a whole thing in itself.
people are smart, and
Yeah.
people are in tune. I think truth and empathy is really kind of the magic combination. You
Yeah.
can
mhm.
tell the truth. You just, you know, the phrase that I had originally heard was actually truth without empathy is abuse.
Mm,
It's like that. Well, I'm just telling the truth.
mm,
Yeah, that's abusive, right? It's truth with empathy. People can handle anything. So I get it. Business goes on. Hey, look, we lost an employee. Pulling the team together and say, look, we got to do something really gross. Like we need to like the business needs this backfilled, and it's gross. Can we just take a
hmm.
minute and talk about that and like acknowledge
Yeah.
like we're about to do
Yeah.
something gross? You know,
I would
then
imagine,
like,
I'm sorry
right?
to
Like,
interrupt you. Is that all
yeah.
right? So I would imagine that, okay, so I'm fortunate in that I haven't experienced close circle grief in a very long time, since I was in eighth grade. In eighth grade, it's all four grandparents died all that one year. I'm not sure how or why that happens, but
Wow.
it did. Um, but I haven't experienced anything since I was a child. But so now as an adult, I reflect on the process and understanding of what's going on in someone's mind. And I'd imagine that one of the hardest aspects of being in grief is the fact that the world keeps going and business continues. And it feels like you're like, no, I want to hold on to this moment because I just lost a loved one and I don't ever want to escape this feeling because I don't want them to feel like I'm not thinking of them. So it's got to be a really hard reality to realize that, wow, the business is going on, the world is going on, and not acknowledging that moment or not taking time for a ritual can contribute to that, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I got lucky. And this actually goes along with what Kara was saying a minute ago. So I'm going to tell a story, and it'll sound weird because I actually am very fortunate with how I experienced grief. Uh, and you are 100% right. It's like, does the sun have no shame? How dare it come up? Like, doesn't the sun know what just happened? Right? Like, why is the world, why are these people smiling? Like, what is wrong with everybody?
Yeah.
And so, um, a couple days after Al died, I experienced a moment of intense joy. I literally had an epiphany of joy, which I don't know how common or uncommon it is. I've talked to a few people who have had this. Uh, but what the short version of it is, um, I kind of gave into my grief.
Mm,
There was this moment where I'm alone. I'm on the floor, literally on the floor, just racked with not just grief, but grief comes with all the other stuff, right? All the
Hmm.
guilt for the things unsaid, all the the mistakes, like everything looms large. And this is where it's different from depression or something. Like you don't realize how much implicit hope there is in tomorrow. You might be estranged from somebody, but if they're alive, there's always the possibility, however slim, that their phone's going to ring. And when they die,
Right.
game's over, right? It's not happening. And in that moment, I'm like, you know what? The world will not blame me. I can show the world how important Al was to me by simply being unable to move forward. And in that moment, I sort of like just gave in to grief and had one of these like lifetime in a moment's kind of moment where I sort of like felt myself fall past all the emotions I know. And this is where I felt it, like grief was this void. And rather than fall into it, it was like it was like a trampoline. Like it was like, nope, you're not allowed in here. Boom. And the next thing I know, I was just elated. I was completely appreciative for every inch of my life, the high of the high,
Mm,
low of the lows, all of it, because all of it was better than this void. And I mean, the irony of being feeling appreciation for pain is not lost on me, and I can't explain it, and there's no way to recreate it. There's no three steps. Like it's an experience I had. It's my story. But in that moment, what I realized was I can honor Al best by moving forward and living a full life. I can't help being a guy who lost his kid, but I don't have to be the guy who lost his kid. And if I can do that and just show, yeah, life goes on, right? Like
Yeah.
this sucked. Let's go. What's next? Right? Next chapter. Dust that one off, right? It will always have happened. She will
Yeah.
always have been a part of my life, and she always is a part of my life. So let's go. When I get to the other side and I see her again, what do I want to do? Tell her, yeah, I crawled into a hole and, two lives were lost that day. Or do I want to go, holy shit, I've missed you. Sit down. I got some stories to share of what's happened since,
Mm.
and I've chosen the latter. Um, but
Is that unique?
yes,
I would imagine, right?
yeah,
Because it's got to be. I imagine a lot of people get to that spot eventually, but the time frame's got to vary from person to person.
and it can take years, and some people never get there. And this is, I think, where Kara, what you were saying, it's like, how do you, like, how do you help people kind of see this path? And I think all you can do is share the stories and
yeah.
show up for people because I put together a talk on this and I called my little sister and I'm like, I had this epiphany and I kind of figured out like 5 steps and I'm going to share this. And she's like, go fuck yourself. No one wants your 5 steps. Just, no one
No one
cares.
wants your 5 steps.
She's like, it's everyone, and I realized like we're all like snowflakes,
Yeah.
snowflakes are completely unique, but from 4 feet away, they pretty much look the same. They follow the same formula. So grief is completely unique, but it's also universal in that it's a human
Hmm.
experience. And if we
Totally.
can show up for each other and create space for each other and make it safe and provide truth with empathy, then we get rid of the obstacles and we put people in a path to go through their journey as quickly as possible. And whether it takes them a day, a week, a year, or a decade, doesn't matter. It's not being slowed down for any unnecessary or external reason. I think that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was thinking about that moment and granted, I think, like what you went through is so layered. So I don't want to say this and be like, I understand where you're coming from, because in no way do I. But the year before last, I lost like two of my best friends in the same year. And I like went through that process. And I remember someone telling me that like grief is like your love. And that was always like
Yeah.
the reframe that I liked. I was like, these deep emotions that I'm feeling, that's just how much I love these people. And that like gave me a little bit of solace. It's just so
Yeah.
interesting. It's just, yeah, it's such a wild human thing that does open you up in ways that are inexplicable.
And I will also say, like, there's no misery Olympics. There's no
Yeah.
world medal for like worst pain. So I don't mind people anchoring on something that they've experienced. In fact, and again, this might be unique to me, but as I've talked to people, I think the unique part is I kind of put my finger on it, but I think a lot of people who go through grief feel it. When you tell me you don't, hey, look, I haven't experienced that, but I know what you're trying to do. Intellectually, you're trying to respect my space and the fact that every journey is unique.
And it was your child, right? That's unimaginable.
But this is the thing.
Yeah.
When you make it unimaginable, you just put distance between us.
Interesting. See,
yeah, wow.
It's another thing.
Right.
But what I'm telling you is that I've been in those depths before, then that's when connection happens.
Yeah, just connect.
Yeah.
I've experienced grief. I know, look, we all experience it a little differently, but I know what it's like to lose somebody.
Yeah.
And you want to anchor on what connects you, not what separates you.
What's interesting about that is, I teach so much leadership development stuff. I respect my craft, but there's this, I think it's probably Brene Brown. It's the moment that you make the conversation about yourself, you're being selfish, right?
Yeah.
So it's we all have that maybe in our head, and it might not actually be correct in this scenario because
I'll say something.
Yeah, go for it.
Crazy. This is not part of comfort. This is the conversation. This was one of the conversations that I had when, little sticky notes are going up on the board of all right, what do you say in which circumstances? And we're putting together the learning modules. Pretend the dog died. It sounds crazy, but when I lost my dog, everyone got it right. Everyone looked at me with empathy.
Interesting.
Engaging. I heard tons of stories. Hey, this was my Saint Bernard. We lost her 4 years ago. This is my bulldog. We lost her a couple years ago. She was a part of the family. Was yours? Yeah, you guys were. Yeah. And it was the right amount of time, and then a natural progression back into conversation. And I'm oh my God, if we could take those lessons and somehow make it appropriate to shift it, right? And I'm not saying tell me how your pet is your child. Don't try and just saying truly the place where the loss of a pet hits, it's just somehow safer than when we're talking about the loss of a person.
You're right.
Blake's missing his cat right now, so it's
yeah. No, yeah, we lost a cat about a month ago who still hasn't shown back up. Appreciate it.
That's such an interesting reframe.
Yeah, I mean, because we're a big animal family, so we've always had different cats, dogs, all types of stuff here. And you think about it, when you lose a pet, everybody comes to you and they say, "Oh, this is the worst. Ugh, I'm so sorry. I know what that feels like." And they immediately tell you that. But when it comes to a death of a person, you freeze. You don't know what to say oftentimes, and you feel like you're almost minimizing the person's loss by being "Oh, that's the worst." But I guess that's not. It's validating the feelings that they're going through. But it feels much stronger and much more uncomfortable because it is another human being.
Which again, it's reframing this and normalizing it is a big part of what we're trying to do through comfort. And so even the idea of calling it comfort as opposed to a grief response is a big part of that. Comfort is a safer thing to provide and to engage with than grief. And yeah, I think it's years ago, nobody knew how to talk about money, and now everything's online. I know how much everybody's house is worth, and and salaries are online. So, some of those taboos have gone, but this is the next taboo. It's we don't know how to have the conversation. And so we all screw it up. But at the end of the day, making it safe and normalizing it takes that person who's going through it and it lets them feel like they're a part of something. And whether they're ready to engage or not, they can be mad at the world for continuing, and they can want the sun to just stop in the sky for a minute, and they can hate everybody, but at least they're not alone and they're not in the hole. That lifeline is right in front of them. Somebody's tied it around under their arms and is tugging. And when they're ready, it's there and they'll get themselves out. But much more powerful than, being "Oh, I see you in that hole. How awful." Hello,
Yeah.
hello,
I could
hello.
never imagine the kind of hole that you're in.
Right? Yeah.
Can I want to ask you a sort of a simple question here, because I think this is the normal, common approach that people take is the first thing they ask you, even at a funeral, how you doing?
Mhm.
And it's sort of an obvious answer. So then also, I know for me, and I'm a neurotic person. So for me, I'm questioning everything that I ask or say or do. And I was just at a funeral 2 weeks ago of a friend's father. And I walked up to my friend, and the words were about to come out of my mouth as he's hysterically crying. And I'm
Mm.
about to say, how you doing, bud? And because it just felt so natural, and I had to stop myself and just give him a big hug and hold on a lot longer than he wanted to hold on, and then just show up. And as you know, at a Jewish funeral, or at least an Orthodox one, you help bury the loved one. And I
Yep.
jumped in to help as much as I could, and just show with my actions that I'm here to support. But that urge to ask, and then I ended up seeing him over the weekend. He
Mhm.
came over to my family's house for a barbecue that we were having, and I noticed that everybody's first question was, "How you doing? How you doing, bud?" And it's putting him on the spot. I could see how uncomfortable he was getting every time he had to answer, "How you doing?" Because he almost wants to be like, "How the fuck do you think I'm doing?"
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Um, Something's better than nothing. Like he knows everyone's doing their best. He's frustrated, but he's aware, or at least I was. Um, I like to take the conversation you know is coming, jump to the end of the part that you could script out, right, and then go from there. So uh, I like things. Yeah, I know you're a mess. I know you're a
Mm.
mess. Uh, what was it today? You know, right? Like, I mean, and there's so much. Like, you can fill the space with anything. What's your favorite memory? You know,
Yeah.
what? Tell me, what is it that you're choking on? You know, what's the regret that's eating you alive? Um, the you know, you can literally take the conversation anywhere. Uh, I would say, first of all, don't beat yourself up. How you doing is what we say when everything is healthy. It does flow
Right.
naturally. Um, if you find yourself saying it, okay, just catch it. Like, don't answer that. Like, that's a dumb question, right? Like, um, take it to the next step. This is eating me alive. Here's a memory I have of your dad,
Hmm.
of this person. You know, this is what it's got me thinking about. Um, you know, I think I'm going to go. This is what I was saying before. You know, it's like I think I'm going to go make a phone call because you know if this happened to me today, like I'd be pretty messed up. Um, hey, I'm sure everyone's asking you how you're doing, and you don't have a good answer. Here's something that you can say that won't sound snarky because I bet you just want to bite people's heads off. I
Yeah.
mean, like literally anything that shows that you put a little bit of forethought into it, it doesn't really matter what it is. They're going to feel the forethought and they're going to feel that intention and they're going to appreciate that.
Yeah. So it's almost a
Well,
sharing process of sharing the grief, and some solidarity in the process of going, "Hey, I get it. I get what you're going through at some level." And you're sharing in the process instead of, I think about it, there's almost a power differential in taking the approach of like, "How you doing? Anything I can do for you?" And it's sort of putting the person in a box,
Yeah.
and it's almost like you're the one in power now. So instead, it's more of
mm.
sharing and equalizing the power differential and just going, "Hey, we're in this
Yeah.
together. I'm just going to sit with you and be quiet if that's okay, and think about your dad, whatever it may be."
I
I also
had,
had
sorry, go ahead.
I also had people who just told jokes. I mean, it's laughter for me. Laughter was always okay. You know, I mean, like one of my friends was like, "Yeah, good luck getting dressed tomorrow. Like, you're gonna be like,
Yeah.
I got a $20 bet says you can't find your shoes in the morning. Like, just call it out. It is what it is. It's a mess.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And actually, I held back one part of the story of my friend's funeral, was that because we have a very dark sense of humor sometimes in my friend group. And when he was crying after, and I kind of put my arm around him, and I just go, "Wow, I didn't realize you were so good at fake crying." And
Yeah.
kind of just
Right.
made like a stupid comment like that. And he busted out laughing. And he's like, "You asshole," and
Yes.
busted out laughing, but it broke. the moment for a second, and he was able to laugh. And it was in my mind, I'm going back and forth. Do I say this? Do I not say it? Do I say it? And I just did it because I know my friend and I
Yeah.
know we can say these things. So I think
Yeah.
that's an important point to make as well.
Yeah. Hard to do that at work when you don't know people as well. Humor
Of
can be very
course. Yeah,
dangerous.
let's be
But
clear.
yeah,
Yeah.
Thank you for
when you
saying that.
know them, like, yeah, right. It's a mess. And there's no reason you can't. It's truth and empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my buddies, his mother unfortunately passed away recently, and all these people were coming up to him being like, "Hey, if there's anything that I can do for you, let me know." And his response was he would look at him and be like, "I really like that watch."
Right.
It's like he would just like pick a thing and he'd be like, "You said anything. I want those shoes."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. My kind of
Yeah.
guy.
I imagine that really helps you cope with it and breaks that uncomfortable tension where I guess you can lead into some deeper conversation if you're able to laugh and make a quick joke.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
For
can
sure.
I ask you a question? And I think I'm not asking because I think I have a deep understanding of what you're saying, and it's really making me think a lot about my approach to these in these types of situations. What I'm curious about, because it's so often required when you're entering to an organization that you kind of have to provide them what's the benefit to doing this as an
Mm,
organization? Why should they do these types of trainings? What's, for lack of a better word, what's the business case? We know because it's the right thing to do and it's a human thing to do. And I think
Yeah.
all of us are feelings focused here and we care about other human beings. But oftentimes businesses need to know, hey, if I'm going to bring this person in, take 2 hours of people's time, 3 hours of people's time away from their work, why should I do this?
Yeah, and I'm watching the time. I think this is I think I don't know if you planned it this way, but it's a great kind of closing question because you address this any sooner and it feels gross, but it's a part of
mhm.
the conversation, right?
Let's just say
Um,
I did do this on purpose, but
yeah, right. Well
yeah,
well
I'm
done.
really good at what I
I like it.
do.
I like it.
Yeah.
So right, so there are numbers. So the last time grief's impact on business was measured was in 2002. It was a $70 billion issue at the time. I pulled that number forward and I made some adjustments for COVID and for the interconnectedness of the world. So it used to be like one death affected 5 people. Now it's one death
Mm,
affected 9 people. You pull this number forward and you get I can very comfortably get to $240 billion like that. I can actually build a model out and get close to $1 trillion a year in productivity loss, right? And you might challenge some of the assumptions, but you're dealing with something that's very significant. And the way that this manifests is one of the most painful for businesses to try to absorb, which is turnover and presenteeism, right? So like a checkout. Uh, you make an investment in your employees, and when somebody is going through grief, that individual going through grief, their world is black and white. You're here for me or you're not. You screw this up, we're done. I am now looking for my next job. We're just done. The people around that individual are also watching what's going on and they see if the company is showing up or not. And by the way, it's not the company. Company doesn't show up in grief. Individuals show
mm,
up. So that manager doesn't show up. Everybody on the team sees it.
Mhm.
Everybody on the team now knows this manager does not carry the culture forward. We don't have it. And they
Yeah.
might try and fight through it, but they know it's a lost cause, which means you immediately have a productivity problem on that team. And you have everybody kind of just waiting for the other shoe to drop. So the numbers are big and the way in which it manifests, it's not fixable. So
mm.
that's why I encourage companies to
Be
address this.
proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have
I
15
guess it
people.
is.
Yeah. What's that?
I should say it is the ultimate test of humanity
Literally.
and showing that you belong somewhere is if they're willing to do this type of stuff and work to comfort you in the process. And if they don't, it's really a kind of a big red flag, I'd imagine, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Or a big opportunity for a company to differentiate itself.
Sure, yeah, it can go
Yeah.
either way, definitely. Well, wow. Thank you for sharing your story with us, your approach. Thank you for sharing a little bit of Elle with us. I think that
Yeah.
this was a really special episode, and I hope people enjoy it. Where can people find you if they want more information?
Comfortcoms.co, or jasonseiden.com. Well, it's spelled right on the screen. You can. I'm easily findable. I'm on LinkedIn, easy to connect with, and yeah, I can. If anybody's interested, I can connect you with one of the team members and get you taken care of.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And Kara, great guest. Good job.
Thank you, Seiden. We really, really appreciate it. I mean, I've always known how important this conversation is, like to put out into the world. And I just feel really honored that you came here and let us do it. So thank you, my
Likewise.
friend.
Thank you both.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Well, this was another episode of The Workplace Wanderer, and we will see you soon.